It's a huge Big 12 battle for the Cougars as they head to Cincinnati for a showdown against the Bearcats. Your home for the best coverage of Cougar football is right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G, presented by Mountain Land Supply on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Woo!
Hans Olsen, Scott Gerard, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Let's talk some football. National college football writer from Sports Illustrated, good dude and friend of the program, Bryan Fischer, kind enough to join us. Bryan, how are you?
I'm staying busy. It's kind of that time of year, but happy to join you guys.
Well, all right, so I want to, like the old Office, talk to me like I'm 5 years old. And explain to me the private equity issue going on with the Big Ten right now.
Well, essentially this is kind of they're going to spin off and kind of create this company called Big Ten Enterprises, and that's kind of where they're going to house all their media rights payments, things like you have the Big Ten championship game, like sponsorships that would go into that game. Everything that basically earns the conference a penny at this point is kind of going to go into this kind of holding company, and each school would have a share, and this investment arm of which is the California investment arm and kind of their pension fund investment. Folks, they would own a share as well. The conference office would own a share. There'd essentially be 20 shares in this company, and as revenue would come in, it would get split 20 ways, and then that's how this investment arm would kind of get their money back over a period of 15 to even longer. And I think the issue that there's really two issues surrounding kind of the furor around this in the Big Ten. There's Michigan's issue, which is kind of a lack of transparency, the kind of thinking, especially among some of their board members, in terms of, hey, if we can go out into the market to need money, we can get at a better rate than this. When you're talking about some of the percentages that they would get, certainly USC folks there's that concern, as well as the fact that they are not getting equal payouts to the likes of Ohio State and Michigan and Penn States of the world. So a whole lot of issues, and I think it really has kind of blown up in Tony Petitti's face, really at the exact wrong point of the year, given everything that is going on, given all the talk about the college football playoffs. So it is a big issue, I think, in the Big Ten. I think it's probably something that at this point, certainly talking with a lot of folks, it's probably going to be pushed to the side a little bit for these next couple of weeks, and then we'll probably pick it up and revisit it as the offseason comes into focus.
Eventually one of these deals is going to hit, though, isn't it, Bryan?
Oh, absolutely. I think the thing that you talk with a lot of people around college sports, at some point somebody is going to take some sort of private equity, investment, money, however you want to kind of term it, and that'll almost open the floodgates a little bit. And I think talking with a couple of ADs out there, certainly they were kind of hoping that this deal would get over the line so that they could not be the first ones to do that. But I do think it is coming at some point. What form it takes. I know the American has been kind of down the road with a lot of folks. I wouldn't be surprised to see some of those schools to look at this in particular. I know the Big 12 has had discussions in the past. That's been something that's even been brought to the Big 12 board in the last couple of years. So this is something that has been circling college athletics, and I think at some point something will get done. I think the issues around the Big Ten, I think, are a little bit separate because they do involve things like signing an extension of the grant of rights for a lot longer than you'd probably expect. So, I think it's going to be different, but it is definitely coming. And I think come 2026 for sure, somebody's going to cross that threshold, and we'll see what the ultimate form that will take. But it's definitely coming in the sport, and we'll see where it goes from there.
What's interesting is when it does cross that threshold and it does become a reality, where the NCAA's put a cap of $20.5 or $21.5 million in distribution. When that does happen, do we then see the NCAA reevaluate and say, all right, well, if your name is USC or Michigan or Ohio State, you can now distribute $38 million?
Well, the House settlement does call for those increases to come. So I think, and I think this is the bigger issue for a lot of folks, surrounding private capital, private equity. Yes, there are certain issues that they have to deal with. Debt on stadiums. A lot of these Big Ten stadiums, especially, they've gone through renovations the last 15, 20 years. They have that debt on their book. They're having issues still. I think they've kind of finally recovered, certainly from that hole in their budget from COVID for a lot of these schools as well. College sports it doesn't have a revenue issue per se. It has an expense issue. And that's the one thing that is not changing. I think that's the one issue why a lot of these schools are considering this is because, they just cannot stop spending on things, whether it be coaches' salaries, whether it be, now you have to pay the players. You're certainly trying to find even more avenues to where you can pay the players beyond that $20.5 million cap. with the House settlement. So, it is a crazy time. I think it's important to kind of understand the financials, but the same thing, at the same time, there are those pressures for the administrations on campus. The sport itself is probably as healthy as it's ever been. There's fan interest is up. You can watch any game you want out there. Like the actual, nuts and bolts of college football that we see on Saturdays and even Fridays and Thursdays and on through midweek right now, it has really never been healthier. And I think that dichotomy, the clashes between those two issues certainly are going to come to a head in the not too distant future. And some schools are going to get smart and come out of it just fine. Others are going to be in a bit of a pickle, but it's going to be fascinating to see how it plays out with a lot of people having a lot of different opinions on the future of where we're going.
All right, I'm going to throw a little crystal ball scenario, and you tell me what happens here. USC runs the table. They win their final 2 games of the year. BYU runs the table, plays Texas Tech in a Big 12 championship game, and let's say it's a same game that we saw in Lubbock, 29-7, never really in doubt. Texas Tech dominates that game. Does BYU then, as a 2-loss, but both losses coming to Texas Tech, do they get in, or does another team from the Big Ten like a USC leapfrog them?
Well, I think it's going to be very instructive on that question to see where both teams are in the committee's rankings tonight, because there obviously was a pretty big gap. I mean, they were BYU's ranked 12th and USC 17th in the latest, I think, AP poll. So, it's going to be interesting to see what the committee. I would tend to say that probably the Big Ten team is going to get that edge. I know the committee has in the past not said they would punish teams for losing one of those conference championship games, but the fact of the matter is, USC with their schedule that they would have, they'd obviously have a close loss on the road against Illinois, which is probably going to make it into the top 25. I think they can finish 9-3. They're probably going to be a top 25 team at the end of the day. Obviously, in the rain against Notre Dame, they lost that one. But, if they were to win out, you're talking about winning against a Michigan team that's probably going to also finish 9-3 at worst and be in the top 20, at least if not the top 15. You got, I think the Nebraska win is solid for USC. You have the Iowa win that is probably going to remain in the top 25. And then going on the road to win a game, if they can do that this Saturday, and I think that's a pretty tall task for the Trojans at this point, but going on the road to win in Eugene against a top 10 team, I think that's going to count a little bit more in the eyes of the committee. I think it is an interesting discussion. I think it's also going to come down to, frankly, what's BYU going to do? If they're going to look like they did against TCU on last Saturday at home and blow teams out down the stretch, especially the starting this weekend against Cincinnati, maybe that does change the calculus, especially if that Big 12 championship game is close. But I think if you're in the Big 12 right now, you probably are a little bit concerned about maybe losing out and maybe being a one bid league this year.
All right, let's set the scenario a little bit for the University of Utah now. So let's say BYU, Texas Tech, they make that run. They rematch in the Big 12 championship. In the meantime, Utah, who's beat Colorado by 46, Cincinnati by 31, Arizona State by 32. Let's say that they beat Kansas State by 30 and they beat Kansas by 30. And they sit 10-2 with big, gigantic spreads and big wins. And similar outcome that Scotty just explained with the Big 12 championship game, Texas Tech with the 29-7 or 29-6, whatever win. And Utah sitting there 10-2 with all these big wins. How does the committee handle Utah at that point?
I think it's fascinating because I think there is a definite discrepancy in terms of how the committee views Utah in terms of passing the eye test, which I think they do in the eyes of the committee, versus the resumes they're going to have at the end of the year. Because I think if you put it on eye test and put it just down to the committee, I think they might at this point go with Utah in some of those scenarios. But honestly, if you're coming down and you're kind of going through the committee, process and putting them up on screens, when you compare the Utes' resume to maybe a 10-2 Vanderbilt even that could have a win over Tennessee at the end of the year. Obviously, you talk about so many of those SEC teams. I think Miami would have a better case at 10-2, to be honest, this year. And I think that's probably the biggest threat right now for Utah if they're to win out and miss out on the Big 12 championship game. That's the one thing that I would kind of keep on mind if you're a Utes fan. You want Cincinnati to win this weekend so you can get into the Big 12 title game. Like that's probably the best path if you can get that automatic qualifier and not have to worry about all that stuff. And I know that's a tall task at this point and you're needing some help, but that's really the best path, I think, to the playoff for the Utes because, you got Miami out there. If they finish 10-2 with that win over Notre Dame, I think that's even where Notre Dame could be a little bit concerned. If there's maybe only one truly at-large spot kind of going into that final weekend of the regular season. That's the thing that is going to really cause some headaches for the committee, comparing all these resumes, comparing how they've seen these teams. And as impressive as Utah could look down the stretch, I think their only path to the playoff at this point is probably getting into that Big 12 title game and pulling a shocker and getting that automatic qualifier.
All right, it's September 1st, 2026. Is Lane Kiffin wearing an LSU pullover or a Ole Miss pullover?
Oh, that's a good question. It's typical Lane Kiffin to hold the wheel and whether there's deadlines or whatever. Like he definitely loves being the center of attention, and he's enjoying this. And I do think he's obviously it's a buy this week for them going into that Egg Bowl, so they got a little extra time around the offices to where they're not necessarily breaking down film 24/7 like they would on a typical game week or going through practice. So he's got a little extra time to play the hits, and I think it's just not. I've never seen anything like the family members of a well-known head coach taking visits pretty publicly on private jets to places like Gainesville and in Baton Rouge in the middle of college football weekend. Like it's just that's just perfectly Lane and kind of sums things up. Who knows what he ultimately wants to do, and he is kind of playing things close to the vest in terms of his ultimate decision. I do think we'll expect some sort of resolution going into to that Egg Bowl on Black Friday next weekend. But honestly, I think Florida is very appealing to him. I think the fact that his wife's family is very connected to that program. He's coached in that state before. I think that would appeal to him a lot to kind of be almost the modern day Steve Spurrier with Steve Spurrier. Having an offices there in the Florida football buildings. They've got kind of a lot of things aligned there. But at the end of the day, too, Lane Kiffin also came close a couple of years ago to being an offensive coordinator at LSU. And he knows the power of that place. He knows, especially when things are pulling in the right direction, that's a place where you can definitely win a national title. So I think it's going to be a lot weighing on him. If I had to go out there, I would probably say maybe Florida Lane Kiffin wearing that hat this time next year, but it really is anybody's guess. And, of course, there's the easiest option for everybody on the table. It's certainly for him to remain there in Oxford, but it's one of the wilder situations I think I can remember recalling at this time of year when you have just a coach that has not just his own university, but has multiple universities in the same conference really eating out of the palm of his hand. It's a fascinating thing going into the year.
Last thing for me is the G5 qualifier certainly coming from the American Conference.
I think so, and I think we'll certainly see if James Madison winds up being ranked by the committee. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they are not tonight, just to kind of push off that issue a little bit later. But I think if you look at, especially if Tulane can win the Group of Five and win the American, I think with their wins over Duke and Northwestern, those are pretty two solid Power Four wins for them, plus the way they would be able to win the conference itself. I think if North Texas were sitting out there with just one loss and to be able to win the conference as well, that would probably be a little bit in terms of the edge for the committee. But it's going to be close, and I think that is probably one of the bigger intrigues, I think, going into that conference championship weekend, not just of the seeding from all those. I think there's going to be a real point of emphasis on the committee, not just to win your conference. If it's the American on Friday night or the Sun Belt on Saturday, you got to look impressive to do it, to kind of get that extra bit of boost for the committee. So I think it's one of the more intriguing situations, and we'll certainly see how it plays out. But would be surprised if it's not the American at this point.
What did you think of the TV contract put together by the new Pac-12?
I think it was solid. And I think it's definitely been interesting that you have not heard a whole lot in terms of the actual figures being tossed around. But I think in terms of exposure, I mean, it's hard to beat it. You're not having to juggle, multiple streaming apps and all this stuff. It's true linear exposure for a lot of their football games. I think we'll see in practice how basketball kind of comes together. You're certainly, I think it was a league that prioritized getting out there, again. Mm-hmm. And, with the new cycle in terms of, hey, this is going to be a little bit of a shorter television cycle. You've got the Big Ten kind of obviously hovering in the background as they're going to be the first major conference to kind of renew their rights in the 2030s. You could tell the Pac-12 really prioritized, hey, we want to be out there. We want to make sure that if you're a fan, you can get access to our games. You can watch them on your cable or satellite provider. You can watch them over the top if need be with other options. So I think they did well in that regards. We'll see about the ultimate money, which also comes down to investment in the program. But given the situation they were in, which was obviously a tough one, I think they did the best they could.
Well, we appreciate your time as always. Thanks for hanging out with us. Look forward to catching up with you again down the line.
Great stuff.
Of course, absolutely. Great to be on with you guys.
There you go. It is our good friend Bryan Fischer, Sports Illustrated national college football writer and one of the best out there.
He thinks Utah's only route is to get a little bit of help and get into the Big 12 championship. Did he really clarify on your question, BYU Texas Tech?
He thinks that if BYU were to get beat up pretty good in the conference championship game, that the Big Ten would take their spot.
Yeah, because you got Vanderbilt to worry about too.
Yep.
Because Vanderbilt finishes with Tennessee, which is a very winnable game for Vanderbilt.
But would be a quality win.
It'd be a quality win for them, a really quality, and they're going to beat Tennessee.
Yeah.
So you're going to have Vanderbilt finish 10-2, and they've got a quarterback that's been in all the headlines. They've got wins over South Carolina, LSU, Missouri, Auburn.
Yeah.
They've still got to play Kentucky and Tennessee. Those are their two final games. They're going to beat both those teams.
Yes, they will. They're going to be in the mix.
Yeah, they are, because they had Virginia Tech as a non-conference on the road.
Yeah.
Boat raced Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
You called one of their games.
Yeah, I was there in Nashville. That was a fun game.
And I thought that Utah State held their own for the first half.
Was not embarrassed in that game, no.
But their losses are to Alabama and Texas. That's their two losses. And their loss to Texas was 34-31. I guarantee you, Vanderbilt, if they finish 10-2,
they're in.
They're going to get the nod over Utah.
Yeah.
They're going to get the nod over BYU coming out of a Big 12 championship. Look, I think the only guarantee for BYU is to win the Big 12 championship.
Win the whole thing. You're like the manager in Major League. Well, I guess we're going to have to win the whole bleeping thing.
I think that's the only way to do it.
Yep.
The more I talk to these national voices,
and these guys aren't. I said
they're
earlier,
in meetings.
They know what's going on.
They're in meetings.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned in the very first segment, they're going to send a message with tonight's CFP rankings.
And even that's what Bryan said too. Let's see what things look like tonight.
Yeah.
They'll tip their hand there.
Because Utah, if they're going to do it, Utah has to start to creep into the top 10. If they're going to be a wild card.
All right, Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
That with Hans and Scotty on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. The wheel is loaded, and it's time to talk some sports. This is Sports Roulette with Hans and Scotty on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It is Sports Roulette. We take some of the biggest storylines, we put it on a roulette wheel, we spin it. Wherever that little ball lands is what we end up talking about. By the way, before we get to that, though, we still have some business to take care of. It is a Tuesday, which means we're giving away some tickets.
It's Jazz Ticket Tuesday, and your chance to win tickets is right now.
Call this number now.
Call this number now.
Be caller number 12 at 801-575-ZONE. 801-575-ZONE. And you'll be on your way to Delta Center to see the Utah Jazz.
He fires the three. He hits. Oh, don't do me like that.
This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, there you go. Caller number 12 right now, 801-575-ZONE, 801-575-ZONE. No big deal. You'll just see the Oklahoma City Thunder versus the Utah Jazz November 21st at Delta Center. All right, Lloyd, let's get to it. Fire up that wheel.
Wemby Ghana.
Well, this is the league giveth and the league taketh away. Victor Wembanyama, who's been playing with the San Antonio Spurs, and by the way, the Spurs have been positioning anywhere 4th, 5th, and 6th spot in the Western Conference standings. They're good, and Victor's good. You just saw the recent highlight where he's beating Draymond Green down to an alley-oop off an inbounds, which was just impressive.
I mean, Draymond Green is not a small individual, and to see him standing next to and trying to box out Wemby, it's like –
His head is at Wemby's sternum.
Yeah.
You know, when we would see images of Victor Wembanyama standing next to Rudy Gobert, it was just obvious that he was an alien. Well, he is out with a left calf strain, and he's expected to be sidelined for, quote unquote, a few weeks.
Yeah. When they don't put a number on it and just say, oh, it's going to be a few weeks, it's going to be a minute.
Well, we've learned a lot with these calf strains on these NBA athletes.
Yes.
The calf strains seem to lead to torn Achilles.
Yep.
And so they're overly cautious, and they're not messing around. You know, Victor Wembanyama, let's say that he ruptures his Achilles, changes everything.
Yes.
A guy with that length, that build, some Achilles heal better than others. We saw Kevin Durant come back and be pretty capable post-Achilles rupture, but still slowed.
Yeah.
It feels like it gets everybody to a certain amount. So they're not messing around.
No, nor should they, too. I mean, if I were the Spurs and you see that calf strain and you know that there is a tie to those Achilles, I hold him out as long as I possibly need to. Even if it sacrifices the season, I do not want to have him anywhere near an Achilles issue.
I will tell you, it's kind of bizarre because I've always wondered when the torch is finally going to get handed to Victor Wembanyama. When it leaves the hands of a Steph Curry or a LeBron James, and when it's going to go to Victor Wembanyama. It's like, hold on, this Oklahoma City thing is getting really crazy. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is averaging 32 points a game. Chet Holmgren has become a whole different personality and body alongside Shai Gilgeous. Like, this Oklahoma City team is next level. It feels like it's dynasty ready.
Yep, it is.
Because it's still a young team, and they're just exploding.
Plus, they still have a ton of picks.
They're 14-1 to start the season.
Yeah.
They've got a ton of picks. You're right. They've got assets. And so I don't know if it's going to be handed to Victor.
Nah.
I don't know if Victor becomes the image of the NBA, or if it continues to be spark plug Shai Gilgeous, or if it just continues to be Oklahoma City and Chet's and Victor's put on the back burner.
Good. Especially if he's not winning and he's missing a ton of games. Look, he missed the back end of last year with the injury. He's going to miss a month or more with this one. So, yeah, I mean, until he starts winning at a high level, he will be considered a really good player, but not the guy, the face of the NBA. All right, Lloyd, spin it.
He's no angel.
No, he is not, and we were just talking about Draymond Green. Draymond Green was not fined nor suspended, but he has been given a terse warning by the NBA because of his interaction with a vocal fan in New Orleans. He got mad at a fan because this fan kept calling him Angel Reese. Said, yeah, you can rebound, but you can't make any buckets.
Because he kept getting his own rebound.
And so
it's great.
He said, he goes, I first thought it was funny, but then he kept doing it over and over. It was a good joke at first, but just, you can't keep calling me a woman, Green said. He said, I got 4 kids and 1 on the way. You can't keep calling me a woman.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
It's not that offensive.
Yeah.
It's really not that offensive.
Yeah, he just kept, he didn't use anything derogatory in terms of.
And you know what sucks about this? The more offense Draymond Green shows to this, the more Angel Reese is like, well, what am I, chopped liver?
Yeah, like, wait a minute.
If somebody called me Draymond Green, I'm celebrating it. What's your deal?
It's like the Brooksy thing with what's his face.
People are
going to keep calling him Brooksy.
Yeah, and now that
talking about DeChambeau.
And here's the problem: now that it got under his skin, he's going to go to every arena in the NBA, and it's going to be Angel.
That's right.
Angel.
And he's going to try to get him kicked out.
Yep.
And he's going to continue to make the NBA look like a joke.
Yep.
Stop it. How about you start being a man and ignore him?
And ignore it.
How about you do that?
I just
you big crybaby.
I mean, this is the guy. He's the mother of all instigators, right? That's what he does. Is he knows how to instigate, and so to fall for something that you've been doing and made a career out of is you got to be a little bit more mentally tough than that. But, yeah, being called a woman apparently put him over the edge, and he can't deal with it.
Well, that's an embarrassment.
All right.
Draymond, go away.
Yeah, I can't wait. But the problem is, you know where he's going to go away to? Inside the NBA.
I might be able to handle him more as an analyst.
Watching him fill in, though, I'm like, no, I
can't stand it?
I can't stand him. Cannot stand him. I'm sure I'll get over it because the show's so great, and as long as Charles there, I'll be fine. But I can't stand that guy.
Well, he's obnoxious.
Yep.
And apparently he can't take a little bit of ribbing.
Nope. He can dish it. Can't take it.
Yep.
All right, Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We'll wrap up this bad boy next right here on the Zone.
Nobody gets you ready for Utah football more than the KSL Sports Zone.
Ready?
Kyle Whittingham and the Utes return home for a battle against Kansas State. Your home for the best coverage of Utah football is right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G. Presented by Mountain Land Supply on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Hans, I was tweeting out pictures and retweeting your pictures of where we were at today down here at Bar Dub Grill, and I got a response from Tyler Slade. He said, well, where are you going to be tomorrow?
Oh.
And I said, well, best Nissan dealership on the planet, Tim Daly Nissan, Southtown. Off the in between the 106th and 112th south exits, right there just west of I-15. We've done so many shows there in the past. Love Tyler and his crew. We will be there tomorrow for your Cougar Preview show from noon to 3.
And if you're a Nissan person,
yes,
you're going to want to come down.
Oh, yeah.
Because Tyler will make it worth your trouble. You've got Black Friday deals that are coming up. Tyler will have something crazy put together. Tyler's in a pretty good mood lately.
Yeah, knowing Tyler the way we do. And yes, Tyler is, I'm sure, in a very good mood lately.
Very good mood. Yeah, very good mood.
I would imagine that he will pull out all the stops for you tomorrow.
So we'll be there tomorrow. Come down and see us. I was getting my boards put together for the Cincinnati call. And as I'm putting the boards together, by the way, I don't know the extent of Waylon Lapuaho. He left the game against TCU. And we talked to Kalani in the post game, and he was like, he was going to tough it out or what. So we'll see what happens with Waylon. But, I think we have really undervalued BYU's offensive line. We talk about Utah's offensive line all the time.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. This resurgence that we've seen from Utah and their offensive numbers and that run game, that was their offensive front. Their offensive line is coming together nicely. We have not talked enough about BYU's offensive line. It's one thing that we're going to hit tomorrow in the Cougar Preview show. I want to jump into some of the depth on this because I watched the one-on-one matchups with Isaiah Jada and Andrew Gentry against these two defensive ends for TCU, Devin Deal and Paul Owale. They owned them.
Nice.
They flat owned them. So as you build confidence over the next two games against Cincinnati, it's got a good defensive front, one of the best defensive linemen in the Big 12, and Dante Corleone, and then finishing it off against UCF. If you can build the faith and trust that Jada and Gentry can get to their steps and get to their points to at least bounce those Texas Tech DNs wide, then maybe you can deploy a little bit of 5-on-4 and utilize a quick release system a la Arizona State.
Yeah.
The one loss Texas Tech has, I challenge any of you to go watch it. You'll see what I see. It's all quick sets, quick 3 steps, quick hits to the slants, quick hits to the seams, quick hits to the hitches, and quick hits to the drags. That was it.
That's it.
I mean, they hit a couple of big strikes over the top two. I told you they had those check twos. But, man, I love what BYU's offensive front is doing.
But how do you get to those big hits? Everything underneath. Everything
has
underneath.
to be
Then
underneath.
you can finally get one over the top.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know if running the ball is what you're going to do against Texas Tech.
Yeah.
You're going to have to come up with something different.
Hey, by the way, speaking of Texas Tech and their defense, do you know what Bronco Mendenhall told me the other day? That Jacob Rodriguez
Yeah.
had signed at Virginia as a quarterback.
Yes. No, I did know that.
Bronco
I did know
signed
that.
him as a quarterback.
No, I didn't know that Bronco did.
Yeah, Bronco signed him.
I just knew that he had played quarterback as recent as 2 years ago. I didn't know where.
Yeah, at Virginia.
But Bronco had signed him.
Yeah. And then when he said everybody was trying to get him to play linebacker, and the way I got him was I said, yeah, we'll give you a shot at quarterback. And so he wanted to play quarterback, was at Virginia, and then Bronco left, and so he returns back to Texas and goes to Texas Tech and becomes the best linebacker on the planet in college football.
By the way, have you seen the odds on the Heisman votes? Jacob Rodriguez is in the top 3.
He might get an invite.
If he goes and plays well in postseason play, forces another fumble or two, has another pick or two, another 10-tackle game that he's just put together game after game, you watch, man, he's going to get a lot of votes. I would love to see, whoever the national champion is, I'm hoping it's out of the Big 12. The Big 12 needs a national champion.
Yeah.
And right now it definitely looks like Texas Tech is most positioned to get that national championship. I would sure love to see that. Bring a little bit of notoriety to the Big 12. Say, oh, they're spending money, they're winning championships, and watch Rodriguez get that Heisman vote.
That would be incredible. At least get him to New York.
It'd be a game changer.
Yeah. All right, Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.